In this video, we're going to open up Unity, take a quick look at the Unity interface, and look at creating game objects. So go ahead and fire up Unity, and we're going to jump over here to create a new project. Now, creating a new project, you basically give it the path to a folder that doesn't exist on your hard drive, and Unity will go ahead and create that for us. The name of the Unity project is going to be the name of the folder that we create. So under my documents, I'm going to go ahead and create a game called Simple Game, which is a folder that doesn't actually exist on my hard drive, but by doing that, Unity will create it, and that will create, well, our project for us.
So this would be like in Crisis where I go in and create a game folder for my specific game in my game projects folder?
Yeah, basically all of the entire project, including all of your assets, will live inside of this folder.
Awesome.
In fact, I can go ahead and show you guys what the folder will now look like. So if I jump over into my Documents folder where I created my project, we'll see that we have an Assets, a Library, a Project Settings, and a Temp folder. Now, Unity just thinks of a project as a folder, so there isn't a file called Unity Project or anything like that that keeps everything in sync. Instead, this entire folder is considered to be the project. We'll talk a whole lot more about assets during this video series because that's where we're going to be spending most of our time. But we also have library, project settings, and temp, which we don't have to touch because Unity deals with that automatically.
Now, what all is an asset to Unity?
Well, an asset in Unity is something like a texture or a model or a script or anything that is used to make your game, well, your game.
So audio files, everything would be an asset to Unity.
Yes.
Awesome.
So inside of Unity, we start off with a scene. Now, a scene in Unity is like a level. You might have a main menu scene, for example, for your main menus, but most of the time you're going to be spending your time in the Unity levels, where you create different stages of your game or different maps or anything that you want. Everything in Unity is expressed through the concept of a scene, and what we have right here is we have the untitled scene, which is a default empty, almost empty scene that Unity creates by default. The first thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and save out this default scene, give it a name, and store it in our Assets folder. So to do that, I'm going to go to File, Save Scene, or I could hit Control-S, and you see we get a save dialog that automatically opens up into our Assets folder. That's because scenes are assets. They're files that are contained within our project. However, in order to make things a lot more organized, I typically group assets into different subfolders based off what kind of asset they are. So to do that, I'm going to create a new folder called Scenes, if I spell it right. And then I'm going to open that up, and I'm going to save the scene out as level 1.
So scenes equates to levels in Unity.
Yes, although, like I said earlier, they can be used for things like a winning screen or a losing screen or a main menu screen as well. But you would also use them for levels. Now that I hit save, notice two things happened. First of all, we are now looking at level 1.unity. .unity is the extension for scenes. We also see down here in our project pane, which I haven't really talked much about, we now have a scenes folder. And if we open that up, we see level 1. The project pane is where you're going to be spending a lot of time in, and it basically is just a view into this folder, into your assets folder specifically. So as you see, we have a scenes folder, and inside of it that we have level 1.unity.
So basically that's just a way to see the things that you're building your game without having to open up a browser and go find everything.
Right. It's
Cool.
it's just an alternative view. So that's our scenes and our project folder, but there's a whole lot of other stuff in Unity that we have to, well, use to make a game. I'm going to do a quick rundown over the user interface. At the top, we have Game and Scene tabs. Now, the Game tab is a view into your level that you are building right now, constrained by the active camera, which I'll talk about in a moment here. The Scene view, however, is something that you would be used to if you are a 3D modeler or coming from other game engines such as UDK or CryEngine. And it allows you to navigate around your 3D world by using some very standard conventions. For example, if I were to hold down the right mouse button, you see I'm rotating around. Now, we don't actually see us rotating around anything, but we can see that we're rotating by this little widget guy up here. So I'll talk a little bit about movement once we go ahead and create a game object that we can see inside of the scene.
Now, in the widget up there, I see that your y-axis is different than some of the 3D stuff I use. Does that cause issues for you?
It does. Unity has Y up, and the issue with that is that some 3D applications will export out models that, when imported into Unity, will appear sideways.
Gotcha.
Now, you can compensate for that within Unity, and we'll see an example of how to do that, or you can decide to compensate for that inside of the modeling program itself.
But so it's just something to be aware of.
Oh, certainly. So that's our scene view. The scene view is where we build our scene. We'll talk more about that once we start creating game objects. But we also have another two panes that are very, very commonly used, and that's the hierarchy and the inspector. Now, inside of Unity, inside of a scene, we have what are called game objects, and we see every single game object that's created inside of our hierarchy. Currently, the default scene comes with the main camera. Notice how when I click on that, not only do we see a visualization of our main camera in our scene view, but we also see all of its options appear in the inspector. Now I can show you guys what moving around looks like. So if we pan over by holding down the middle mouse button, we can see that we're moving around. I can zoom in with the zoom functionality on my scroll wheel, and I can rotate with the right mouse button. So that's our camera, and we can see the frustum that our camera is creating visually represented. And when I say frustum, I'm referring to what the camera can see in our game world.
Yeah, basically that box outline.
Right. So that's our hierarchy and our inspector and our project. So basically, just to recap, Unity allows us to create games by creating scenes. Scenes are saved as assets inside of our project, and scenes contain game objects. So I'm going to go ahead and create one more game object in this video, and I'm going to show some really common shortcuts that I'm going to be using throughout the rest of the series. The reason I want to do that now is because I often kind of use these shortcuts without realizing it, and they're really simple to remember. So I'm just going to go ahead and come up here to Game Object, hit Create Other. I'm going to create a cube. Now, the first thing that I want to show you guys is the frame up. That's if you hit F, your viewport will jump up into the currently selected object. I use that very commonly when I want to get a closer look at a particular game object. The next things that we will use very frequently are the little widgets right here. So you notice that I'm able to either click on the handles and move my object, or I can click on these little axes to move it around in 2 dimensions. So you see these little axes are represented as little boxes. So if I click on the red box, I'm moving up, down, forward, and backward. But if I click on the blue box and drag around, I'm moving up, down, left, and right. And if I click on the green box, I'm moving in these axes. Now, that's not the only tool that we are going to be using. There's also going to be the rotate tool. You notice that I get to the rotate tool by clicking on the rotate button up here on the top left. The rotate tool allows us to, well, rotate.
Rotate things. Are there hotkeys for these?
There are, which I'll show them right after I talk really quickly about the scale, which, well, works the way you'd expect it to. It allows you to scale the object. In addition, you can scale uniformly by clicking on this little gray box inside of here. Okay, so for the hotkeys, you will commonly see me switch between these very easily, and the hotkeys are very easy to remember. They are W, E, R.
So it's kind of like Maya.
Yeah. So to get to the move tool, we hit W. To get to the rotate tool, we hit E, and to get to the scale tool, we get R. So those are the shortcuts that I'm going to be using, as well as how to basically navigate around inside of our viewport. We'll talk a little bit more about some other ways we can navigate on later once we need them. But I think for now, for a basic overview of the UI, we're pretty much finished, and we're ready to move on to talking about what game objects really are.
Sounds fun.